Hi guys, I'm Jamie Fuller, Chairman and co-founder of EO, and I want to welcome you to the revolutionary world of EO SwimBETTER. Today we'll cover your dashboard and the 6 key features of the EO SwimBETTER system and help you understand how to read your unique data. It's important to acknowledge that there's no one-stroke-fits-all way to swim. The purpose of EO SwimBETTER is not to make you swim in a specific style. Instead, it's been designed to give you insight into your stroke so you can analyse, adapt, and improve your swim technique. We're not here to coach or replace your coach if you have one either. Instead, we're providing a tool to help you and your coach see what you've never been able to see before and make and test technique adjustments based on objective data in order to hit your swimming goals. Before we get started, I want to impart some pretty important advice that's been drummed into me, and that's don't try and change everything all at once. Focus on 1 or 2 key areas, and once you're seeing and maintaining those improvements, you can start to tweak other things. The other thing to keep in mind is that your hand is the most significant contributor to your propulsion. It leads your stroke. So keeping pressure on the palm of your hand and the force moving towards your feet for as long as possible throughout each stroke is key to seeing you achieve those goals. I like to think of the EO SwimBETTER system like the layers of an onion. We start on the outside, and as we peel back the layers, we delve deeper into what is happening within your stroke. As you get more and more comfortable with the features, you'll easily toggle between them to explore what's going on within your stroke and find a pattern for analysis that works best for you. For now though, let's go through each feature step by step and stroke by stroke, starting on the outside layer of the onion. After you've downloaded your data to the EO SwimBETTER app on your phone, you can either view it in the app or see it in more detail on the EO SwimBETTER platform at swimbetter.eolab.com. For the purposes of this explainer video, we're going to concentrate on the platform view. Dashboard. Your EO SwimBETTER dashboard is the home of your progress. It provides a snapshot of your key metrics, including a trend line showing your progress over time. The swims in your dashboard need to be viewed against pool type, stroke, and distance, so you're always comparing like for like. If you want to eliminate a swim from inclusion in your dashboard, simply click the red star alongside it on your list of swims. There are 7 core dashboard metrics to help you track your performance. You can view them all or just the ones that are important to you. You can also change the order that they appear on your dashboard. Let's start with force per stroke. You want this to trend up, but it will eventually plateau as you hit your threshold. As you get stronger, your force will increase. As you get fitter, you'll be able to maintain it for longer or at higher stroke rates. Stroke rate. This relates to a full rotation of both hands, what some might refer to as a cycle. It may trend up, down, or remain steady. This will differ depending on your goals. Distance per stroke. We'll want to trend up to show you're covering more water with each stroke. Strokes per lap. The opposite of distance per stroke, we want this to trend down as your strokes become more efficient at propelling you forward. Time. Obviously, we want this trending down to show that you're swimming faster. Average velocity. We want this trending up at comparable stroke rates. Propulsion. You want this trending up to show that you're not wasting your energy with force going in non-propulsive directions. When you want to take a deep dive into a specific swim, just select it from your list of swims, over here. Let's start with the most basic of the features, stroke rate and force. This is the outermost layer of the onion. This feature shows you a snapshot of the total force and stroke rate for your swim. You can view this as an average for each lap, or dive a bit deeper and review by stroke by clicking the stroke button here. Unlike anything else, EO SwimBETTER measures instantaneous actual stroke rate, captured stroke by stroke, so you can see so much more than just the average stroke rate across the lap. As your technique gets better, your goal should be either to improve your efficiency by lowering your average stroke rate whilst maintaining your time, or maintaining your stroke rate and improving your time. You can also compare your left and right stroke forces and see how they change either from lap to lap or stroke to stroke within your swim. You're looking for a balance in force between your left and right strokes. It's not unusual to have one hand more dominant than the other. If you see this in your data, you can test out ways to improve balance, like making a conscious effort to apply more pressure on the weaker hand. When you find a technique that works, practice it until it's ingrained in your muscle memory. Aim for a steady stroke rate and balanced and steady force across both arms for the duration of your swim. If you notice a drop-off in power at the end of your swim compared to the start, that may be a significant contributor to the loss of speed. If you see this, go back through your strokes to see where the power starts to fall away. Compare your strokes from earlier in the distance to those later in the distance to see where you could make some improvements. Think about what you're doing in those later strokes. Are you lifting your head instead of turning it to breathe? Are you looking too far in front instead of down and only slightly forward? Are your hips sinking? Are you rolling more and putting your body off balance? These can all contribute to losing power, efficiency, and running out of energy. Aim to maintain your distance per stroke as you fatigue. If your force output is dropping significantly towards the end of your swim, you'll be losing force as fatigue sets in. Think about this during your swim and focus on the direction your hand is facing. Many of the world's best swimmers have the palm pointing towards their feet from just after the catch until just before their hand exits at the end of the pull. You could also try focusing on slowing down your stroke rate and effort at the start of your swim. If fitness is causing you to bottom out, going slower at the start might help you maintain your stroke rate and speed across the whole distance. As you get fitter, you can focus on steadily increasing your stroke rate and power, but only enough to maintain it for the full distance. Force field. The force field feature shows how you distribute your force in 6 directions. Start by looking at the breakdown of your total forces by lap. It's easier to focus on the percentages on this chart rather than the graphic when you're just starting your analysis. You want your highest percentage to be propulsive force. This is what is moving you towards the end of the pool, so you should always be the highest number. The second highest number should be in downward force, but it should be considerably lower than propulsive. Too much downward force robs you of propulsion. Upward force is bad. It doesn't contribute to swimming faster, and in fact it may push your body down in the water, increasing opportunity for drag. Upward force and hand drag should be your lowest numbers, ideally at or as close to 0 as possible. Neither will help you increase your swim speed. In fact, they're probably slowing you down. If you're seeing upward force, think about how your hand is exiting the water after the pull phase. Is it coming out palm up? If so, that will contribute to your upward force. You might want to consider changing how your hand exits the water. The 2 most common ways used by world-class swimmers are either knifing out pinky first, or with the palm pushing back and lifting up and out with a high elbow. If you're seeing hand drag, think about how your hand is extending after it enters the water. Are your fingers slightly lifting with the palm pushing forward? If so, you're essentially digging your oars in. Try adjusting your hand angle so you enter fingertips first and extend your arm with the palm facing the bottom of the pool or even angled slightly towards your feet. Hand drag can also show up on your breathing strokes if you're overextending and pushing your fingers up and palm forward. Ideally, your left and right lateral forces should be relatively low, each in the 3 to 5% range. Whilst there's some room for lateral movement, minimising these forces will assist in transferring that energy to increasing propulsive force and improving speed. You don't want to be pushing force out to the side where it's wasted. An imbalance could lead to an injury down the track, so taking your time to work on balancing your forces now is important. If you want to look deeper into your data, you can also view the breakdown of each of the 6 force directions stroke by clicking on Stroke here. If you spot significant lateral force in your numbers, say more than 10%, that's a red flag to dig deeper and look at where you may be losing propulsive force. This could indicate a significant in or out sweep, which you'll be able to easily pick up in the next feature. Or it could mean that your hand is not pointing back towards your feet through the pull and is instead angled towards the left or right, pushing your forces sideways where they're being wasted. Remember, any force percentage applied other than propulsive is potentially robbing you of speed. Once you get the hang of interpreting the percentages, the graphic depiction will become obvious. The general goal is a narrower force field that extends straight down towards the bottom of your screen, i.e. towards your feet to reflect high propulsion. The graphic can be helpful in providing a quick snapshot on how your stroke is improving. You will want to go from something like this to this. Stroke path and hand velocity. Improving your stroke path boosts the forces that propel you forward and should help maximise your distance per stroke. This feature shows your hand path from different angles, helping you to pinpoint areas to improve. The side-on view reveals the depth and shape of your pull from side on, as well as how high your hand travels during recovery. Ideally, your stroke path should primarily run parallel to the centre line of your body. This is easiest to see in the overhead view. Your body's centre line is indicated by the dotted line in the centre of the chart. For left-hand strokes, the whole stroke should be to the left side of the centre line and to the right side for right-hand strokes. If your stroke path has a lot of sideways movement and looks more like a wide S shape or is crossing the centre line of your body, you've likely got an excessive outsweep or insweep. You may need to focus on refining your stroke path to be more parallel to the centre line of your body, and that should see an uptick in your propulsive and a reduction in your lateral forces. You can also see your stroke path from the front with the head-on view. Each stroke is divided into the glide, red, pull, blue, and recovery, grey phases. Your goal is to optimise your glide and pull phases to improve your propulsive forces. Over on the right-hand side, we have a time slider that shows the total time taken for each stroke. As you slide it down, it also tells you the position of your hand and your hand speed at that point in your stroke, helping you understand your hand velocity evolution. Once you have your hand path optimized and you can see a better distribution of your forces in all directions, you want to make sure that you get that happening on every stroke. This is where consistency is crucial. Consistency. Maintaining consistency of good technique is key to increasing your swim speed. You can quickly pick up any anomalies in your stroke by overlaying the path of every stroke or selected strokes within a lap. Ideally, every one of your strokes will follow the same path. When all your strokes are overlaid, aim to have the thinnest line possible with the shapes remaining consistent across every stroke. At a glance, you can spot any possible asymmetries of your stroke pattern. If you see your left and right-hand paths looking different, this is most likely due to a stroke imbalance, as seen here. If you think your breathing is to blame, try using a snorkel to take head rotation out of the equation and check if the pattern persists. First and last strokes can cause anomalies, so switching these off or focusing on your middle strokes will give you a better picture of how consistent your stroke is. Stroke phases. Stroke phases breaks down your glide, pull, and recovery phases for every stroke across both arms. Because SwimBETTER can detect each of the 3 phases in your stroke, it summarises your swim by showing the percentage breakdown of each phase, vertical bars, and time spent in each phase, the horizontal bars, as an average across the lap. You can see this here with your averages for both your left and right strokes for the lap. Then we can drill down further to see the same detail for every single stroke over here on the right. You'll see where we're looking at the 3rd right stroke in lap 1. Stroke rate is shown below each breakdown, helping you see how phase proportions relate to this key performance feature. Now, in case you're looking for clarification about what we mean by glide, pull, and recovery, the glide, the red, is the time your arm spends in the forward extended position before it catches for the pull. The pull, blue, is the action of moving your hand through the water to propel you forward. Recovery, is the grey, begins when your hand exits the water at the end of your stroke and ends when that same hand re-enters the water to start your next stroke. Force versus time. Now we've hit the center of the onion. This is the most complicated of the different features, yet probably the most interesting once you get your head around how everything works, both individually as well as combined. First thing we need to do is understand how to read these charts. Now, don't sweat it if you find it overwhelming or if you don't immediately get it to start. Once you're more comfortable with the system, you'll find this stuff not just interesting, but also super informative. You can see here that we can choose to look at either total, propulsive, vertical, or lateral force. As you'll see shortly, we can also look at combinations therein. But for now, we'll concentrate on propulsive force, which is the most important of all. To do this, we deselect total force and select propulsive. Let's start by isolating one hand. Here we can click the left off so we focus just on the right hand. Then we'll hone into view just a few strokes at a time. You'll see where the line runs across the zero measurement here on the x-axis. This is when the hand is out of the water in the recovery phase. Then here, the hand is entering the water in the glide phase. This can be very insightful. If the force goes negative during the glide phase, that's a sign of hand drag, that the fingers are turning up and the palm is pushing forward during the glide extension rather than facing the bottom of the pool or angled slightly towards your feet. Ideally, you're looking for the propulsive force to be slightly positive during the glide phase, like this. As we move through the glide phase, we get to the catch here, and then we start the pull. You'll see how the propulsive force increases as we pull until it hits a peak and then decreases as the pull phase completes and the hand exits the water here and then goes back into recovery. The cycle then starts again. So once you understand those basics, you can start looking for certain patterns. We've already talked about how we can see hand drag. Let's look at another common phenomenon, which is a double peak. This is something we see quite often. You'll see here we've got the propulsive peak, but after it comes down, it pops back up again, showing a double peak with the valley in between. This is a sign that something's happening during the maximum propulsive phase of the stroke, which results in a loss of propulsive force, albeit for a split second, but a loss is a loss. Now we know from our research into the hand angle of attack, at a certain point during the maximum force pull, the hand may be either moving sideways or slightly changing angle, so the palm is no longer facing towards the feet, which, as we covered earlier, is the optimal position for maximum propulsion. We can see a correlation between the hand slightly rotating and force reduction. This is what we call losing water. Really good swimmers who are very in tune with their hand position and sensitivity can feel this. For many of us mere mortals, though, who aren't so in sync, this shows us clearly what's going on. As well as just looking at the propulsive phase, we can overlay another force direction. Let's have a look at the vertical force in conjunction with propulsive. When we look at vertical force versus time, the force that's showing as negative is downward, whereas when it comes above the zero line or the x-axis, that's a sign of upward force. Upward force tends to be when the hand exits the water just prior to recovery. You'll recall we talked about wanting upward force to be zero or as close to zero as we can. Now here's a great example of how we can easily identify upward force going above the x-axis or zero line just before the stroke finishes the pull phase and the hand exits the water. You can clearly see this pattern reflected in almost all of these strokes, showing the palm is facing up just prior to the hand exiting the water. There are a number of ways to eradicate this from your stroke. Once you've maximized your propulsive phase, you can rotate your hand 90 degrees so it exits the water like a knife, pinky first. Or you can keep the palm facing towards your feet and, with a high elbow, lift the hand up so that it remains facing your feet the whole time that it's in the water. Easier said than done for some, but I can assure you it's well worth practicing and finding the best option for you. Finally, you can also add in your lateral force, so you can see where you have any sideways movements in your stroke. Lateral force can be caused by your hands moving out to the side or by your hand rotating during your stroke. Remember, we want the palm of the hand to always face the feet during the pull phase.
Positive values, or when it goes above the x-axis, represents your left or right hand facing outwards or potentially sweeping out, away from your body. If it's negative, i.e. if it goes below the 0 line, this represents your left or right hand facing inwards, or perhaps an in-sweep.
As mentioned before, if you see this, focus on your hand position as you're swimming to ensure your palm is pointed towards your feet. By using SwimBETTER, you've joined a bloody awesome group of smarter, faster, better swimmers.